Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dad Strength Podcast. I am your host, Richie Leahey. We've finally hit the last week of, or actually the last item on our original ranker.com list. So just a bit of background information. I set up a list on ranker.com to rank the most essential items for dads. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking at each week covering an item on our website, dadstrength.us, and that website is set up basically as a blog. So each item gets its own post, each week a new item. If you go to the rankings tab, you can see the ranker.com list, and you have a chance to vote up and down different objects. If you think an item is essential as a parent, you vote it up. If you don't think it was that big of a deal, like last week I talked about burp cloths, you could probably vote those down. And if they're getting a good bit of people voting them up and people voting them down, then you'll know it's a controversial item, something that you may or may not need. If everyone's voting it up, it's probably something that you're going to need as a parent. And some of them come down to just choice. Like we have disposable diapers on there. I have to add on cloth diapers sometime down the line. Might be sooner than later. Don't really know. I'm still planning out what items I want to bring on the list. So basically, each week I'll talk about a new item on the podcast. This isn't going to be the whole podcast. It seems like it's been because it kind of has been the last week and probably will be this last week. So basically, this week we'll talk a little bit more about the format of the podcast and how it's going to be changing. I had an original idea to just have it tied in with the video section and kind of do a 2-in-1 because we weren't getting listeners on the audio only segments on YouTube. And whenever I did that, then you could tell the audio was only basically for video, even though I recorded it as a live show. So I got some negative feedback from that. I tried to put the audio from the video at the end of the podcast, but I still got some negative feedback. So I decided to just keep them completely separate. And the podcast is the podcast. So if you listen to podcasts, you can check it out. If you prefer to watch the YouTube show, basically you're going to get the same content. If you want to read the site, you can just read the blog post. I'm still expanding those, but they're almost there. So please check out that content. If you enjoy the site, let me know. If you enjoy the podcast, check out the site and give me some feedback there. There's a contact tab that goes to a Google Voice form, and it has a Google Voice number there that you can call in and be a guest on the show. Haven't received any of those that can be played or that are worthy of the play. I did get some calls, mainly just like general feedback. But if you have questions and you want to be heard on the show, go ahead, call that number, leave a voicemail. I do have some questions that I've received. So I think in the future what I'm going to do is break the show up a little bit more, expand it a little bit. I know I've been doing I always wanted to keep it under 15 minutes because I know as a first-time dad, I didn't have the time to be researching parenting stuff all the time. And it felt like overkill. And I feel like that's who's going to find the show and that's who's going to listen to it is first-time parents or young parents that have young kids. So I wanted that to be accessible. And some of our best shows, download-wise, we had a huge boom whenever we did the milestone charts. To me, that content's a little boring to cover just to read. I know it's important to parents. So I want to tie some of that stuff into the show instead of just focusing it a whole episode on it. So I'm probably going to start to add a little bit more segments. So it's not all going to be about the ranker list. The ranker list will be a segment on the show. And I would like to bring in, I'm probably going to start next week. I'm going to bring in a question and I'll just riff about it a little bit. Answer the question the best I can. Something like general parents. Some of the stuff I might have already talked about on previous episodes, but we've expanded pretty good when we switched to dadstrength.us, and we've got a good listener base now. So if you are a listener, feel free to participate. You can leave comments on the articles I really need to check and see. I don't know if we've received that many. If we've received any on this site, I have a couple sites going at the same time, couple different shows. So I'm not sure if Dad Strength itself has gotten any comments. But if you do comment, I'll try to answer you. So I encourage you to check that out. I think most of the styling for the site is in place now. I think most of the photography I have, everything caught up. But if you have any feedback, if you see anything that's not working, please let me know, because it does take time to get a site in working order, and especially the way I want it. I want it to be able to load fast, and I want it to be accessible for people with disabilities and any audience. So I try my best to make sure, using the web standards, that does happen, because that's a big deal for me. I want our site to be fully accessible. So if you hit any snags, find anything that's broken, any loops or anything, please let me know. I try to set it up so that our site loads super fast and works its best there. Also, I did set up for the show. It's not really for this show specifically, but if you would like to help out the show and get some guests on, because I've had some people ask, and I've tested it on another show that I run and got some mixed results. Sometimes it sounds good, sometimes it doesn't. But I do have an Amazon wish list that I put together. I think it's linked on the site. If it's not, I'll have to ping back and make sure that it is. But I do have a wish list together. It helps me out if you like any of my content. I also run a tech podcast, gaming podcast called Socially Numb, which is where this site was originally, or this podcast was originally hosted. It was to break off parenting, because I figured most people didn't want to listen to someone talk about parenting in the middle of a tech video game podcast. And so Dad Strength was born, and it's kind of evolved into its own thing. And I also have a sports show on Southbound Sports. I do a little bit more research stuff there. I dug into like the Major League Baseball payrolls over time, so you could like rank and see, in the grand scheme of things, it's not all about money. It's about who's spending what in compared to the other teams in the league. If you're spending a ton of money, but you're still getting outspent by everyone on your roster is going to have poor talent. But anyway, that's on the sports segment. So if you're into stuff like that, check out Southbound Sports. But I share the same equipment. But if you want to help out the show, some of the videos, I put together a wish list. People can donate, because some people have asked. So feel free, donate there. Don't feel the need you have to. I try to keep a variety of different objects. Some things might be pretty expensive, but we want the best gear to make the best show possible. And if we think of anything else, I'll add it to the list. But we're going to be trying to get some other colors in on the segments. But the main thing is, we're going to have different segments on the show. That's going to be starting here at the beginning of the next month, March, which is like next weekend, I think. Or actually, it is going to be the next episode, because I am out of objects that were originally on the ranker list. And that leads me to talk about the last item, baby wipes. Now, baby wipes, it's going to be hard for me to riff about for any length of time, because it's pretty self-explanatory here. And that's why I saved this one for last. After I thought about it last week, I was going back and forth on which one I should close with. But I figured I'd close with baby wipes, so I could talk about the show, which already ran me about 9 or 10 minutes, it looks like. So, baby wipes. They're disposable. I don't know if you can get around it. We talked about like going green and having the same type of thing. What was it? The cloth diapers. Like, if you wanted to be conservative and you wanted to do that, I don't know if you can do it with baby wipes. I guess you could. You could like wet your own cloth and your washcloth, but then you immediately have to wash it. So in the long run, I guess you're not filling the landfill, but you are wasting a ton of water, which I think causes more pollution. So I don't know. It's a dilemma. It is an ethical dilemma if you want to use baby wipes. But we do. We also have a baby wipe warmer, which I guess works. It's better than grabbing a cold baby wipe in the middle of the night and then wiping your child with it and having them scream. So I recommend looking into it at least. I guess you could just run the wipe under some warm water though to warm it up. That would work too. Or even just set the pack of wipes on a like a heater or underneath the vent you have. So maybe you don't need the warmer. But that's another item. That's another debate. Right now we're just looking at the wipes. How essential are they? And this is just the plain baby wipes. Yeah, you can use them to wipe your baby's face. I've seen people do it obsessively because they kill germs, that's what it says. And they also have some type of like liquid on them. So they're already wet. They're pre-moistened. And you could buy the individual, they're kind of like the individual towelettes that they get at the restaurant sometimes when you're eating wings. And that's the type of item that we're looking at. And I think they're pretty handy. I have a little travel pack that I keep in my bag at all times, just because if I have to change a diaper, I can do that on the go. But other than that, I'm not really sure how essential they are as items go, because as a parent, I mean, yeah, once you're done changing diapers, I think that's it. So as your child gets older, is it going to be an item that's essential? I guess diapers are like that too. As new parents, yeah. But we'll see. We'll see what type of parent listens to the show. Maybe your kid's older, you don't use wipes or you don't use diapers anymore. Maybe you'll have to bring in pull-ups or underwear. I guess I would have to bring that stuff in. But anyway, yeah, that's what we're looking at. Baby wipes. How essential do you think they are? They come pre-moistened. Some of them irritate your child's skin, and it depends on your child, like their skin type. So you can't even be like preventive. I don't think it's even like the brand. Like you can buy one brand, and it might cause your child to break out. Then you have to go try another brand. But I think it's just because of the different, I don't even know what's in them, alcohol or something. I guess it depends on the brand what they use in them. But they have some type of germ-killing agent. I'd imagine it's like a hand sanitizer type liquid that moistens the wipe. Go ahead, you can wipe it. They're pretty handy. They are clean. They're pretty thin too, and they are pretty durable. I should have did a durability test. For some reason, I remember as a kid, they would have, maybe this is a paper towel, but they'd like put marbles in or something on a commercial, and then they load the marbles up. The more marbles, it would show the more strength as they made it wet. So maybe that was a paper towel and not a baby wipe. But that's what it makes me think of. They're pretty strong in that regard. Like I don't think I've ever ripped my hand through one wiping my daughter and had poop come all over it. I just have had them run out of space, so that if you have like less space, then you have to like fold it up and get another one. So sometimes depending on how messy it is, you have to go through a bunch of different wipes, and that seems like a waste to me. But thinking about it now, I don't think there's any way around it. You're either going to waste it there, or you're going to have to use a regular cloth and then get 2 or 3 cloths and then run the wash. So depending on how you want to conserve energy, if you're that type of conscious parent, I don't know. So go ahead, show me on the rankings tab. Go to the rankings tab on dadstrength.us, and you can either vote up or vote down baby wipes. And give me any feedback, send it in. If you have a question for the show, I will be starting that. So get a question in for the show, and I'll riff on that. So send them in. If you want to actually be on the show to ask your question, call the number on the contact form. It should be on there. If it's not on there, send me a message. You can reach me on Twitter, Richie Leahey. You can find the spelling for that on your podcast host. And I'm your host, Richie Leahey. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.